Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the Free Press's live stream. My name is Rafaela. I'm a producer and a host here at the Free Press, and I'm so glad to be joined by Bernard-Henri Lévy. He has spent 50 years covering conflicts across the world in Sudan, Afghanistan, Bosnia, Ukraine, Nigeria, Libya, Kurdistan. The list really goes on. He's directed 8 films and authored over 45 books, and we're just so thrilled to have him here today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Rafaela. Very happy to be with you.
You have specifically been covering Sudan for, I believe, 25 years. You've reported from Darfur, from the Nuba Mountains, from South Sudan, and you've just come back once again from Sudan with Tablet Magazine to cover what's happening right now on the ground. And you reported all of your findings in a piece called The Bloodlands of Africa. And in that piece, you called this conflict one of the fiercest and, to be sure, the most forgotten wars that you had ever covered. Why is that?
Why is that? Because first of all, Africa does not catch a lot of interest from the rest of the world, because there might be a little point or part of racism in our approach of these wars, because we have a tendency to say and to think that we don't understand anything, that it is pure absurd quarrels between factions, and that it is impossible to understand. We don't try, we don't make the effort to understand. So what I did in that story for Tablet is I tried to do the job, to see, to report, and to understand. And when you understand, when you make the effort to understand, you do understand, and you discover that it is a very, very major conflict, and that we should, all of us, be concerned by it. It interests all of us, the rest of the world.
I think for a lot of listeners, they probably have no idea what's happening in Sudan because of either the disinterest of most of the media, or because they feel like it doesn't affect their day-to-day life. So for someone who's just coming to this topic, can you walk us through what's happening there right now and how we got to this point? And I think a good starting time point is when Omar al-Bashir was overthrown in 2019 after 30 years of dictatorship in the country. What has happened since that moment?
What happened when al-Bashir was toppled? There was a popular uprising toppling him, and then there was a military rule who took over the power. And then inside the army, there was a split between the regular army on one side and some rebels or some seditious militias led by a general called Hemeti, and who is doing all the dirty things which we are seeing now in the news, in the little news who reach us, especially in Al-Fasher. General Hemeti, with his SFR, he has created groups of killers who really burn, destroy the villages, kill civilians with cold blood, and commit a lot of atrocities which are not war. This is not war. It is not a civil war. It is a war against the civilians of Al-Fashir recently, but Khartoum 1 year ago, Khartoum, which was taken back, which was retaken, which was reconquered by the regular army. But before that, they really made, the Hemeti people, SFR, they made a huge bloodbath in Khartoum. They destroyed a big part of the city. And Khartoum is not just a city. It is one of the most ancient city of the area. It is one of the most ancient civilizations of the world. Very old, noble, sophisticated, civilizations of the past, like the pharaohs, like Egypt. This is what the Sudanese civilization is, and this is what Khartoum is the cradle of. And what is happening right now, in the last 2 years, is that these militias are destroying everything, people and memory. The bloodbath and herbicide, destruction of a great city of the past. So this is the current situation, and of course, there is this. I try to tell it also in my tablet magazine piece. There is all the 25 years, which explain also in part what is happening today. It is not this. Bloodbath did not appear out of a blue sky. It did not appear just like that. There was a war in Darfur, and the Hemeti people, the militias, are the same than as those who committed the genocide in Darfur. When I was reporting there, it was not for Tablet at that time, it was for Le Monde, the newspaper Le Monde, the daily newspaper. The same Hemeti, General Hemeti people, rebels of today, were committing on horseback huge razzias, huge destruction and massacre in 2007. And before that, in 2000, it was my first story, again for Le Monde, 25 years ago. It was in the Nuba Mountains, which is also a very holy place of civilization, all civilization, great people. They were exterminated slowly by fire, by hunger, by the people of the north. So it's an old story which is reaching now a real climax, and which is reaching a state of hunger, killings, and genocide, which are today, this minute, without any other example of such an extent.
And just to make sure I'm following you correctly, these two groups, the Sudanese military, the SAF, and the RSF, were once aligned in toppling the former dictator. There was then a break in ranks between RSF, led by Hemeti, who you mentioned, and the Sudanese military, led by al-Burhan, who's now the de facto leader of the country, the president. And now these two groups are in a sort of civil war for control of the country.
It is not a civil, again, it is not a civil war.
Okay,
I told you, it's a war against civilians waged by Hemeti, FSR in English, waged by them a war against civilians. But you are right. At the start, there is a break inside the bloc of the militaries. It is the Hemeti people who broke against al-Burhan. But why do I make this nuance, this precision? Because there is a tendency in the medias to be lazy. And to be lazy means putting everybody back to back. When you say that it is back to back, that there is no difference between this and that, it's a good excuse not to act, not to do nothing. If everybody is guilty, if everybody is as bad, so why care? But it's not the case. Honestly, personally, after this last trip, the one for Tablet, my conclusion is that you cannot put back to back the al-Burhan people, regular army, and the Hemeti people, the FSR. You cannot put them back to back. On one side, the first one, you have someone who signed the Abraham agreements, who tries his best to make peace in the area, who feel entitled to bear on his shoulders the inner heritage of this Sudanese civilization, and who tries at least as much as he can to protect the civilians and the people. On the other side, Hemeti people, you have, honestly, as far as I saw, pure barbarity, pure cruelty, pure savagery, plus radical Islamism, plus hatred, racist hatred against Arabs, against black people, and so on and so on. So for me, one of my conclusions is that, as always, we have to resist the easy laziness, which consists to say all the same, close the door and drop the key. This is the tendency of the Chancellery of the West. Close the door, drop the key, because they're all the same. It is not the case.
You're speaking about the two leaders of each side. I would love for our listeners to learn a little bit more about each of them. Hemeti, some people assume his wealth is somewhere in the billions. Can you just tell us a little bit more about him and his background, and also on the other side, al-Burhan and his background and who these men are?
I'm not sure I can have really fresh knowledge about that. About Hemeti, I really don't know.
Okay.
I never met him. What I know is that he's supported by Emirates, by probably others. Al-Burhan, I met him. I met him 2 or 3 times. In Port Sudan, which is the provisional capital of Sudan, because Khartoum was half destroyed. Then I saw him close to Khartoum. I saw it 3 times. What I can say about him is 2 things. What I saw with my eyes. I tell it in the tablet reportage. First of all, obviously, his popularity. I was witness of a very strange moment. It was late in the night. We had discussed a lot. I had asked him every possible questions. And suddenly, he told me, come. And we walked out of his home. His home was in the darkness, because there is a threat of drones night and day, drones from the other side, from Hemeti. So pure darkness. We go through a garden, and we open the door with the president, General Burhan, president in charge for the moment, and we arrive on the coast, in the city, but on the promenade, on the walk, without guard. He did not have really bodyguards, and I saw suddenly in the darkness people recognizing him and coming along and gathering. And there was a moment of of whistling, of shouting, of sort of popular enthusiasm. It was really a strange, very, very strange moment. So this I know. What I know also for sure is the willing to get closer to the West. France, of course, America for sure. I did not find in what he said this usual woke despise of Western values, all this way of saying Western values is neocolonialism and so on. There was in the way of speaking of al-Burhan a very sincere wish of having bilateral relation on equality with whoever, with France, my country, America, probably, certainly, and others. So I felt that. After that, I cannot tell you much more. After that, they lost al-Fashir for sure. This is a military failure. They face another thing which I saw, which is that in front of them, on the side of FSR, you have really a dirty war. First of all, a lot of mercenaries who are coming along from various countries. They are not doing as always when you have mercenaries, paid soldiers. It is not really. It is not a nice war at all. War is never nice, but when you have these sort of people, it's even worse. So that is what I saw.
And what parts of the country does RSF control versus the Sudanese military? Sort of how is the country split up in control at the moment?
At the moment, they control Darfur, alas, the poor earth of blood, which is Darfur, which has been already in the past so much harassed, destroyed. As I say again in Tablet, I recall the reportage I did 20 years ago in the middle of Darfur. I went 1,000 kilometers after Chad, inside the land, to Jebel, to Beir Mezza, which is 800,000 kilometers. And I saw it was one of the most distressed places of the world which I ever saw, with this Janjaweed, the horseman, the killing horseman who really burnt, raped.
And the Janjaweed that you're mentioning was the group prior to RSF. The RSF is sort of
They are the ancestors, all the same. It is the RSF of today.
Mm-hmm.
They are, when they are a little old, when they are 50 years old, they are the same, who took service again in a land which they know well, and they are continuing the work of destruction. And when they are young, they are really the inheritors of the tradition. Janjaweed, RSF, it is more or less the same. So what the RSF controls, what Hemeti controls for the moment, and with a strong hold since the fall of al-Bashir, is the former Darfur, which is terrible, because there in Darfur they have really an old hatred, and old quarrel, which they want to finish now. And I would not like to be a Darfuri at this moment. They are really left to the mercy, or to the absence of mercy, of the new Janjaweed. And this, for the international community, for the West, for President Trump, for Macron, whoever, it should be a real concern. The fate of Darfur, again, in the hands, under the spell, under the curse, under the threat of the Janjaweed. This is a real issue today.
And this is something you point out in your piece, which is this is not the first time this region has seen this level of atrocity. In the early 2000s, as you point out, hundreds of thousands of people were also killed in the Darfur region. So it says something that now, 20 years later, the same thing is unfolding. I want to go a bit deeper into the ethnic and racial divides that are framing this conflict. Much of the victims in Darfur are Black African, non-Arab people. The north of Sudan has the population is more so an Arab population. The south is more Christian. Can you describe these racial and religious divisions that are playing such a large part in this conflict?
Yeah, it is hard for me to depict, because it is hard for me to think it, but it is the reality. There is a real racist approach in the minds of the killers of the sort you are mentioning. The Hemeti people really are racist. They are racist as I don't know, the French were racist in the 90s when they colonized part of Africa. They really hate the black people. It's hard to say, hard to think now, but it is the reality. They really think that there is a hierarchy between the Arabs and the black people, and there is a real will of humiliation, of maybe extermination. I hope not. I hope we will prevent that of the black people. It is a racist war in Darfur, in the thought, in the mind, in the intention of the FSR bands, for sure. It's a racist. The Christians in something else. The Christians already, this was the first story which I mentioned in Tablet, which I did a quarter of a century ago. The Christian part of the Sudan did secede, did separated itself. I met in that time, it's one of the great memory of my life, a great man called John Garang of Mabior, who was a Christian warlord, the chief of the Christian Army of Liberation. He died a few years after the South Sudan was created, but the South Sudan split itself. By the way, it's not in a very good situation now, politically, economically, but this is another story. What you are seeing now is a real racist war between so-called Arabs against so-called black inside Darfur, waged by the FSR militias.
And just so I'm understanding, both the leaders of RSF and the Sudanese military are Arab descent. However, RSF's basic crusade into the Darfur region to capture territory has been brutal and so violent towards the black population who is living there in their attempt to capture territory. Am I getting that right?
Correct. You get it right. Absolutely.
On your reporting trip, you visited Sudan, as we mentioned. You went to Khartoum, among other places. When you were on the ground, can you just tell us what you saw and who you met, and paint a picture? Because we're talking about the atrocities that are happening, but I think a lot of people won't actually know what we're talking about. So can you just paint a picture of what you saw on the ground?
The best picture is I write better, especially in English, than I speak. So the best picture is probably in Tablet. But to make the long story short, what I saw is real hunger, people dying from hunger in front of my eyes. You see that today in the places which are under control or just left by FSR, really physically people dying by hunger. You see women who have been raped in the most horrible conditions, and telling it. There is in the part which is under control of al-Burhan of Sudan, there is a familial planning, planning familial, which is a network of organizations who take care of the abortions, of the taking care of the women who have had huge trauma by rapes and so on. And I collected a lot of testimonies which are beyond words, at least words which I could express. Terrible stories. I heard a lot about rapes since Rwanda, since Bosnia, since Bangladesh 50 years ago. But what I heard in Sudan probably goes beyond what I heard before. I collected the testimony of a young boy, very young. I produced his testimony in the tablet piece, who was enclosed with a group of ladies in a closed room, and who was like a furious animal, raping with chemistry on top. I saw some mass graves, a lot of mass graves, with very moving moments of neighbors coming out of the house for the first time since 2 years, and opening the mass graves and trying to give a decent sepulture, a decent burial to each of the people in the bunch, and so on. I saw these sort of things.
You write in the piece about witnessing one of these mass graves. I think you wrote it had 244 bodies, um, and they were killed by RSF, and then you witnessed a prayer ceremony. What was that like? What were the other people saying?
They were praying. They were praying. They did not say a lot. We arrived. There was a group. When we arrived, there was a group of men and one or two women. I don't remember now. And they were around the mass grave, about to dig it, about to undig the bodies, and they were praying. A modest, heartbreaking prayer for these souls badly buried in an indecent way, which is for a Muslim, like for a Jew or like for a Christian, which is a terrible curse, a terrible destiny, to be buried in an improper, inhuman way. So this is what basically what I saw, and then the digging.
In the piece you wrote for Tablet, you also write about burned neighborhoods, districts that are completely emptied out, famine-stricken people who are waiting for aid to come. It may never come. And what we haven't said so far is that in this conflict, the scale has been just tremendous. I think 12 million people displaced. The casualty count, the numbers vary. Some say 150,000 up to 400,000. It's really hard to know. But that the scale itself has been just tremendous. And then beyond that, as we've talked about, you reported on rape that has happened on an unspeakable scale. And as you said, you've reported on similar sexual violence in Bosnia, Bangladesh, Mosul. On that note, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, tell me.
How is the systematic use of sexual violence in this war different than what you had seen before?
It is systematic, as it was in Bangladesh 50 years ago. The only moment in my life, in Bosnia, it was sort of systematic also, but really systematic, if I dare say. I saw that half of a century ago in eastern Pakistan, and now in Khartoum. Systematic means using sexual violence as a way to destroy bodies, humiliate souls, and destroy the social link. This is systematic rape. And this is the way in which I think the Hemeti people think. They are happy with destroying the body of a woman, like Hamas in October 7. They destroyed, as you know, really bodies in an unspeakable way. They are happy to destroy forever or to traumatize forever the soul of the lady, the spirit of the lady who is. And because it happens this way in very traditional societies, it breaks also the social link because you have in Sudan, as in Bangladesh a long time ago, as in many societies, you have a tendency to say the victim is also guilty. You have a tendency to say the victim is spreading some impurity in the community, and very often the lady is banned.
Because of the stigma of what happened, and then also because of sometimes unintended pregnancy as a result of the rape.
Because of what happened, and because of pregnancy and giving birth, and these. You have some society. I saw that a lot in my life. Again, first time Bangladesh, half a century ago. These war babies, as they were called in Bangladesh, they are conceived as a sort of a terrible stigma, which allows the community to cast out, to kick out the mom and the baby. Bangladesh, it was another story. You had there a great president, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who decided to name these women Birangona, which meant heroine of the nation, hero of the nation. And it was a way to put them back inside the community. In Sudan, you have, thanks God, you have this system of familial planning. You have this system of this network of places where the voice of the women are heard. And when doctors or nurses or just human assistants try to repair the souls, and there is an attempt in the North Sudan to bring them back in the community. But the attempt, the wish, the will of the killers is to break the link, is to break the families, is to break the village, is to break the neighborhood, is to have... I saw some ladies who were harassed in this way, who changed neighborhood, who walked out of the city in order to give birth far from the eyes of the family. Some of them probably think, I will not give names, of course, some of them think that they will give the baby to another family and go back and say nothing. Others believe that God gave them the mission to take care of the baby, whatever happens, even if they have to be banned. But in the way, whatever you're thinking, you are thinking about it, the will of those who commit crimes is to break body, soul, and the community. The three. It's a murder with three targets: body, soul, and the society. And this is the way why it is so systematic. It's not just an accident, a monstrous accident happening in a village. No, it's a systematic way of waging war. And this systematic way is used today in Sudan by the FSR.
On your trip, as you mentioned, you interviewed President al-Burhan, the leader of the Sudanese military and the de facto president. And he explained this fight as a fight against an Islamist network that has aligned with Hemeti and the RSF. Can you explain that?
I think that the big line, the big dividing line, which is one of the main, if not the main dividing line of our time between enlightened Islam and radical Islam. For me, it's a major story of the last decades. Radical Islam, intolerant, killer for the women on one side, and the enlightened, moderate, democratic, friend to human rights, Islam. The dividing line goes everywhere. It goes in France, it goes in New York today, and it goes in Sudan. In Sudan, in the Sudan of now, there was some Islamist 1 year ago, before my report, on both sides. My feeling, what I saw, what I heard, what I investigate about is that on the regular army side, they are breaking with that. There was clearly some offers by Iran to help. My feeling is that it was refused, it was rebuffed.
And just to make sure I'm understanding, Iran offered to help the Sudanese military side, SAF.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think so. This is the result of my reflection and observation. There was an offer, an attempt to enter in the breach, and this side, the al-Burhan side, made its choice. It was probably not as clearly the case 3 years ago, but today it's clear: the West and not Iran. The Abraham Agreement sides and not the radical Islamic nightmare. On the other side, you have all the ingredients, all the components, all the devices of this moral atomic bomb, which is radical Islam. Of the new Janjaweed side, on the FSR side, you have the devices of the Islamist bomb. Yeah, for sure.
At this point, I want to bring in some of the external players that are making a difference in this conflict. There are allegations that the UAE is smuggling weapons in to aid RSF. And the allegation goes as far as to say that in return, RSF is smuggling gold out of the country to UAE merchants. Sudan is a mineral rich place. It has silver, rare earths, gold being probably the largest commodity. What do we know about these allegations of UAE involvement on the RSF side?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a lot additional information from what you are saying, but what is clear, and which is sad, by the way, which is difficult to understand, is that Emirates is clearly engaged and involved at the side of the Hemeti people. It's sad because Emirates have been on the good side of recent history many times, starting, by the way, by the Abraham agreements. They were at the start with Morocco, with Bahrain, and with Israel. But they are clearly, in this story, on the bad side. Is it because of gold? Is it for other reasons? I have no additional information. I did not get any new stuff, any new material, but which is not a rumor, which is a fact, is that they are they are helping the Hemeti people for sure, supporting their provisional government for sure. And this again is an absurdity, because the Emirates have been again. I am among those who believe that the Abraham agreements, Abraham Accords, is a blessing, is a treasure, is a real treasure. And those who made that should be thanked, if not blessed, thanked at least for that, including the Emiratis. Why are they today on the bad side of the history, on the dark side of the history? I have no real explanation, but I know it as a fact.
UAE isn't the only country. There's Turkey, Egypt, Saudi, Iran, Russia, all have interests in this conflict. Can you just explain why so many countries have interests in Sudan, given their geopolitical positioning in the world and just their location?
Because it is geopolitical pivot. Libya, Sudan, Chad, and N'Djamena, the former Fort Lamy of this is a triangle. This is a tripod, which is absolutely crucial for the Middle East, Europe, Sahel, and the rest of Africa. It's a key place. Access to the Red Sea, beyond the question of the wealth and the primary raw materials, but geopolitically, you just look at a map, and these people are aware. One thing which we French, maybe you American administration are not so well aware, which is that it is a strategical, absolutely crucial part of the world.
And just to help the listener, the Red Sea is one of the most important shipping passages because so much energy travels out of the Red Sea, oil and commodities.
Oil was there, of course, and you have Houthi who are not very far. You have Houthi from Yemen. It's a strategical place. For all of those who are attached to peace and to stability, Red Sea is absolutely crucial. If tomorrow Red Sea falls under control the bad guys you mentioned, you will see the oil we all use in our houses, in our homes, will go
And Sudan
skyrocket.
controls 500 miles of the Red Sea, which is why Iran probably is making a move to try to curry favor with the president.
Iran is trying to, yes, for sure. Iran would have been, as far as I know, again, Iran would have been very happy to put its footprint on in the area for the reason you mentioned, but I think they did not. I think that I don't know, by conviction, by interest, because he prefers to give a privilege to the bond with America and Europe. Al-Burhan refused the embrace, the endorsement, the death kiss by Iran. They have an embassy, I think. They have an embassy for sure, a diplomatic representation, no more.
I want to move on to the response of the world, and particularly in the West. As we've mentioned, very few people are paying attention. You write that this war has 3 times the death toll of Gaza. Why is there no outrage, no campus protest, no international pressure? You also mention in the piece that President Macron of France was one of the few Western leaders to have actually met with al-Burhan. Where is everyone else in terms of international attention and international leaders coming to the region?
Number one, no Jews, no news, except me, Tablet, Alana Newhouse, and now you. No Jews in the debate at the moment, and Anne Applebaum of the Atlantic. First of all, no Jews, no news. When it is Israeli who are at war with the Palestinian people, it puts fire on all the brains and the minds and so on and so on. And here you have a situation which is objectively incredibly more terrible in terms of hunger, of death number, and so on and so on. But nobody cares because of that. There is no Israeli to blame, number one. Number two, there is this racist dimension which we mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. I covered so many wars in Africa, and honestly, people don't care. I made a long report, a long story for the Wall Street Journal about Nigeria 5 years ago. Nigeria, Lagos and Abuja. Well, it's a different story. It is a half Christian, half Muslim country, the biggest country in Africa. And when there is a mass killings of Christians by Boko Haram and their affiliates, which are called the Fulanis, whatever. I made a long reportage there and a long story. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. It is black between black, tribe between everybody in the West. I had polemic with French or American so-called Africanists who said, "Come on, it is just a fight between tribes. Come on, it is just a fight between ethnicities. Who cares? It is shepherds against peasants," and so. And they could not envision the reality of the story, which was Muslims, radical Muslims, Boko Haram, against brave Christians, which really was the true reality. It was the main dimension. People did not want to see. I saw that. I made a tour in a few American places of lectures. There was some audience. By the way, they were the Christian representative of Nigeria were received by in the White House at this time. To be honest, they were received, and today there is a sort of wake up of administration again. But it's another example. Right? If you compare to Gaza, do people really care about the martyrdom of the Christians in Nigeria? And this is by the way, what I modestly tried to say, last year I made a tour of campuses in America. I went from Colombia to Los Angeles to San Francisco. I went in 13 or 14 campuses to confront and to face those pro-Palestinian, often pro-Hamas movement. And this is one question I asked them. I told them, okay, you care about Palestinians. Why not? But do you care about Christians in Nigeria? Do you care about the victims of Sudan? I did not do yet my report, the tablet one, but I knew, I followed the situation. People did not want to know. They did not even want to hear. When I spoke of Sudan in Columbia, in Harvard, in Stanford, in UCLA, in many other universities, people said that it thought and told me openly that I was making a diversion. I was trying to divert the attention from the just indignation about Gaza to the fake situation of Nigeria or Sudan. It's honestly, it's hopeless sometimes. Not hopeless because I never lose hope, but it's sort of despairing.
Another element here is the rise of America First politics, which has been shepherded by J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, and just a growing either indifference or hostility towards America's intervention around the world, whether it be humanitarian aid or military aid. We see that growing on both the left and the right, but I think right now most prominently on the right. In addition to that, we saw Elon Musk come to DC and slash USAID, which is providing a tremendous amount of humanitarian funds into Sudan. It's obviously a large departure from the George W. Bush years when a lot of Christian groups that he had links to were providing a tremendous amount of aid to Sudan and throughout other African countries. I think PEPFAR aid relief was one of Bush's most positive legacies. And America used to be proud of this, proud of our involvement in Africa. Do you see a return to those types of politics that would allow for American policymakers to provide more aid to this crisis, or do you think those politics are just of yesteryear and America First is here to stay?
For a Republican president in America, there is a choice between three behaviors. A Republican American president, he can be a deal maker, he can be a peacemaker, or he can be the chief of the free world. This is the three possibilities. Deal maker, why not? But honestly, it is not worth the American exceptionalism. You don't need to be America to make good deals. America is not, according to me, just another nation. It is a special nation. So deal maker, it is the 0 degree of ambition for Republican president. Then peacemaker, peace and peace and peace, to add one piece after another. Another tendency of your current president. 7 peace, 8 peace, 9 peace. Again, peace as itself is not good. You have good pieces and bad pieces. It's not just to make peace is not an objective as itself. Peace with Hitler in 1943 was not a good idea at all. Peace with Putin on the body of the Ukrainian and on the hopes of the Ukrainian people is not good. So peacemaker might be sometimes a good thing, but might be sometimes a trap for. And then you have a third role, which is chief of the free world. This is the role, honestly, which some Republican leaders, as Ronald Reagan, as George W. Bush, did endorse. Whatever you think of them. If I were American, I would be a Democrat, certainly not a Republican. But I must admit, because I'm honest, that they did this job. In the current administration, as far as foreign policy is concerned, I see an hesitation between the three roles: to make deals, to make peace, or to reinforce freedom. I don't know. I see the three. When I listen to what President Trump recently said about Nigeria or Sudan, I think that the third solution, chief of the free world, might prevail. When I see him just making an addition, 1, 2, 3 of the piece he succeeded to do, it's not America. And when I see that the main point is to make a good deal about rare earth and so on, and tariffs and blah, 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 that's not America. So let's see. You still have 3 years to wait, and I hope you will see before the end of the 3 years what will be the role of America in this moment where your enemies and our enemies, our Europe, you America, are not losing time, because Iranians, Chinese, Turks, radical Islam, and Russians are not losing 1 minute in their effort to humiliate us, to laugh at us, to weaken us. So, shall you, America, react and wake up in front of these 5 new empires taking birth again? I hope so with all my heart. Whatever be my personal ideological background, I do hope for this, for America waking up, renewing itself with the great dream of America, the great dream of American exceptionalism, and fighting really for freedom in the world.
You end your piece by saying to ignore Sudan would be not only a disgrace, but also a mistake. Can you make the case a little bit more about why Americans should care about this war and what happens if the West continues to ignore Sudan?
First of all, if we continue to ignore Sudan, it is, as I told you, one of the most ancient and one of the great civilizations of the world which might disappear. You have genocides, you have urbicides, when a city is destroyed, and you have a civilization side. You can have a whole civilization disappearing. What I saw in Khartoum, when I saw in the National Museum of Khartoum, what I saw in the Library of Khartoum is really the signs of the will to erase, to destroy from the surface of the earth the traces of a great civilization. You remember when we saw that, and at that time America reacted a lot when the Taliban in Afghanistan destroyed the Buddha of Bamiyan. It was the same. Or when the ISIS people destroyed the statues and of the Museum of Mosul and of Palmyra, destroyed with like this. Okay, so you have that, and in the human civilization is a whole. You cannot accept a great civilization to be erased without an effect on all the others and on all of us by a invisible, secret, but real sympathy between all the components of the human civilization. If tomorrow the Egyptian civilization or the Sudanese civilization had to be erased, it would have for all of us a repercussion and an effect, number one. And number two, because Sudan means Chad, because Chad means Sahel, means Africa, means terrorism, means jihadism, because it is a place where jihadism is trying to remake and reassemble its forces, because it will be the center of gravity after Mosul and Syria, of the Islamism of tomorrow, and so on. If we want new terrorist attacks on another World Trade Center, on another Bataclan or Charlie Hebdo in France, let's allow the Islamists of today to gather, to make plans, to train themselves under the banner of the RSF. This is the best way to have in the coming years. I don't want to be a bad omen prophet, but it's the best way to have very bad news in our cities. So it is our personal and national interest which is involved. Radical Islam is really a poison for Muslims, by the way, first of all, for Muslims themselves, but also for the West. It is contained and it is even beaten in many places of the world. It was beaten in Iraq, in Syria, it nearly disappeared as a leading force. But of course, it is reappearing where it can, wherever you have a possibility for it to bubble again, it occupies the bubble. Sudan, Darfur, the part of Sudan controlled today by the FSR, can be the place where this big bubble can bloom and balloon again in the next year. So it's not just a matter of general geopolitics. It's not. I'm not doing Kissinger now. I'm doing a friend of families touched by the Bataclan massacre, and also World Trade Center, by the way. It's in this capacity that I'm speaking to you now.
I'll add on one more thing that we sort of alluded to earlier, which is when the U.S. retrenches, our adversaries move in to the vacuum. And that could have all sorts of consequences in terms of Iran or Russia having more control over Port of Sudan and sowing chaos in the Red Sea, which could impact the price of oil if they hold up shipping and traffic, which has an impact on the American gas station, which I think a lot of people don't always put together. So the consequences are sweeping.
Yeah, not only on oil, on world commerce in general. And I'm not an economist, but I see as everyone the risk of inflation in the West and in America, which is a real risk we are facing today. If all the ships who go through the Red Sea have to do the big tour, you will see the increase of the prices of a lot of things. So, of course, it has a direct effect on our daily life. So that's why I end my piece by these words. It's if we look out of Sudan, if we decide not to look at it, it's a moral fault, which is for me the worst, but it is also a self-interest and self-concern, a big mistake. A lot of our lives depend on the stability or not, on the peace or not in this part of the world. And I would really love, and I say that without any polemic, I say that from the bottom of my heart, all the students, the goodwill students, whom I see in the American or French campuses, claiming that they are concerned about what is happening at Gaza, which is my case. We are all concerned. I should so love them to take even a little part of their indignation, a little part of their concern. There is enough space in their heart for that to Sudan, to try to have eyes on Sudan. I saw that there is a slogan, hashtag on X, on Twitter, who says all eyes on Gaza, all eyes in Gaza. I would love an all eyes on Sudan, all eyes on Sudan, a part at least of our eyes on Sudan today, because it is in terms of scale, in terms of geopolitical effects, civilizational effects, all that we discussed, it's incomparable. So, in a way, it should not be compared, but it's really a moral disgrace to be so biased, so one side looking. It's unforgivable. So all eyes on Sudan, or big part of our eyes up today, thanks to you, Free Press, thanks to your friends of Tablet, part of our eyes on Sudan. Please, please, please. And if I went back to the campuses again, to some campuses, I will never do the same tour which I did, which was a madness. But I would say that, okay, you are concerned by Gaza, please keep a part of space of your heart for Sudan.
Well, Bernard-Henri Lévy, thank you so much for being here. His piece is The Bloodlands of Africa, which you can read in Tablet magazine. We just so appreciate you taking the time to do this, and we hope to have you back soon. So thank you.
I'm sorry for my broken English. Terrible.
Not at all. It was perfect. So
I'm better in the magazine.
And everyone should go read the piece. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.